Hello and welcome everybody to the 11th Tour de Tools already. Tour de Tools is a series hosted by me, Bart, and my fellow co-host Gauthier. Tour de Tools came into life because both me and Gauthier like discussing tools, frameworks, libraries that we use in our day-to-day work. And luckily, it's very nice that we can very often invite very interesting guests. As we have today, Gauthier, I'll let you do the introduction.
Yep. So today we're welcoming Ken McGrady. So Ken McGrady, for those who don't know, is the engineer manager at Streamlit. He's been there for a bit over a year and 1 month. Ken McGrady is calling us from Seattle, Washington, which is still pretty early in the morning. He has a broad software experience, both as a software engineer, but also as an instructor for about 13 years. And if we talk really about backgrounds, he has a strong computer science background, both a bachelor and a master in computer science. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you for having me here. Just so excited to talk to you all and share everyone Streamlit. I think it's a really great product. I focus solely on the open source product that is Streamlit Core. So shout out to the core team. We're a team of about 5 to 7 people. Streamlit is a tool that helps people build data applications. So once, it's just a simple data script can be converted to like some web application in minutes. So we embrace, scripting, specifically Python as the tool here. And a single line of code can weave in interactive elements on the page. So I'd be happy to show you a demo of our Streamlit introduction and show some of the cool elements that exist and what people can do with it.
Really cool. Really looking forward to it, Ken. It's really something. Well, I already expressed my fanboyism because it's something that I've used quite a bit over the last 2 years, I think. So it's really looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the best things about working at Streamlit is we have a huge community of people just loving Streamlit, which, it certainly boosts my ego, but it also just makes me feel really a huge sense of pride in where I work. So I'm just really excited here. So what I'm showing here today is what we call the Streamlit Hello application. This is the introductory application for people new to Streamlit. Basically, once you download Streamlit, pip install Streamlit, you can just type in Streamlit Hello, and you get to this page right here. And it shows just the example demos people can build. So I'm going to start with the last one actually on the list, the data frames. And I know people are, if you're doing any data science or data analysis, you're probably going to be using a data frame or the Pandas framework here. It's one of the important tools. We wanted to make sure that we support that feature correctly. And so one example here is that we have a multi-select where we can enter different countries here. It populates the data frame with information. We generate a very visual graph here. And really, it is a minuscule amount of code here, right? It's really just, that multi-select button is just one line of code. And then the chart here is just an Altair chart that we just support and display on the screen for you. So just the simplicity that comes from this in this small piece of code generates a very vibrant, beautiful UI for you. So you just take all of that that elements off the, all the design, all the interactivity, off the plate and building all that. And you just focus on really the data. And that's really the goal that we're trying to go for here. Yeah, and so we have super many use cases based on here. So this is just working with data frames. The next one's a really awesome one. This actually integrates with PyDeck. We basically focus on saying what are the tools people are using in Python and how do we integrate it into Streamlit? And so, in here we have a great example of maps. We have these checkboxes here, and this interactivity just changes the whole design view and layout, so simply. And so if you imagine in a previous world without Streamlit, people were writing scripts. It was running notebooks or something like that, and like this whole feedback mechanism of how to look at data, how to manipulate it, how to change it around, how does this work overall. We are just seeing like plenty of more use cases across the entire business organization and operations to help like understand like what we can do from the data that we have.
I think for me, speaking a bit about my own experience with Streamlit, what the use case for me was always like, we're doing this data analysis, we're making a prediction model, we have some insights, and these insights we want to share to an end user in a way that you can like easily explore it and these type of things. And this is where something like this to me was very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. What's really great is, we have this community of people, and they build these brand new applications with the data sets that either they've obtained or public data sets that are available, and just really create a new way to literally play with the data and just really build just a rich understanding of the content that we're getting here. So, just a huge shout out to, our community page in there. And then like on the other side of it is we see, enterprise companies who are trying to make sense of all this data that they're collecting and trying to understand from logistics, supply chain analysis, things like that. And this tool makes it great to like support calls. We've just seen like the amount of use cases just makes it great. And it's kind of like the nature of what Streamlit's goal was, right? And that's why we embrace scripting. It really makes a very open concept of where we want to go.
You just talked about the community, and you said it's a big community. Do you have some numbers to share there? Like I don't have the GitHub in front of me.
I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head. All I could say is that I can share the page right here. It's discuss.streamlit.io. You could see just like the content that's happening. We have a staff of people who focus on, just really responding to it. Working on the open source side, I spend a lot of time reading people's thoughts. I have done a little bit of support. I have done a little bit of understanding people's use cases here, and just like it's just an overall like really open setup there.
And 50K stars on GitHub. Just want to say that.
Yeah, we've been tracking that, and I do know it's accelerated incredibly fast. And like I said, just a huge point of pride for everyone that we have here.
That's great.
And so I can continue showing some more demos here of just what happens. Here is an example of a plotting demo where we're basically slowly adding more information. All these elements are all in the code itself. So a progress bar to the graph being displayed, and it's just, tiny amounts of code. This one uses NumPy more specifically, and just our line chart feature. All of these are available on our docs page. I'll make this a little bit bigger for people. But basically, we have a team really focusing on just writing really great docs and making sure people use Streamlit to its fullest.
Yeah, that's really cool.
One thing that I will add, just like on top of it, is just like we also, we basically enabled a lot of options to appear in Streamlit, partially because it's just a script in the end. But the other interesting thing is we built a whole ecosystem called custom components, which basically like we support a lot of these components out of the hood. The charting, the maps library using PyDect and displaying it on the page. But we also allow people to build a multitude of components out there in the world that could be anything relevant to like molecular data structures to simple things that just help enable the app like work better. I built a custom component that just automatically refreshes the data, so that if you want to refresh the data, on some interval to check to see updates or real-time analysis, it comes there. And so we've seen some like authentication tools and connections to databases, stuff like that there.
All right. was one of my questions, static versus, let's say, moving data.
Absolutely, yes. So like we basically see like just more use cases just get created just because we have a custom component system. We basically focus on integrating all of the like what are the key libraries especially that like are needed in here, and then the rest of it can be done be it via some custom component setup. So if you're a little bit of a JavaScript person, you know, and not on the Python side or vice versa, like this basically allows you to create that one line of code and it naturally just implements itself in the end. So it's pretty good. And then the only last thing that I'll say is we have launched since October last year a sharing product, which basically is saying that once you've deployed your application, or once you've built your application, you're super satisfied with it, and you just really want to share it with the world, you can just really in one click just put it up on the web and have a URL and then send it and have everyone share with it.
I have a question on that, but first I'm gonna take the question from Mark on the chat. Yes. So Mark is asking, does Streamlit have custom layouts like Plotly Dash or Dash?
So we have some layout functionality here. So I'll just show an example of a tool that's actually on Share, which basically is a cheat sheet for all the options here. We do have some layout functionality allowing the ability to show some columns, which is basically what you're seeing here. We have more ideas of how to better layout your app, including we have some forms where basically you could delay execution of like the script via the the widgets that we created and interact with that. So we do have a variety of ways that you can lay out your apps.
Mm-hmm. And is there also a way to because now we always see a sidebar and a main panel? That is also the default, or like do you have other teams where there is, I don't know, a nav bar and a footer, like these type of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we focus on solely like the core use case, and that core use case right now is the main in offering the sidebar ability. We have future thoughts. I know like one of the top requested features is multi-page apps, which requires thinking of other UI layouts, navigation and stuff. We really take all that feedback within the community, and we just prioritize it based on need and whether there's a workaround, and trying to build like the best product available for everyone. I want to just give a shout out to really the whole company. We're about a team of about, I think it's about like in the 40-ish range of people, and I just like want to say how impressive it is that we have like, it's just such a lean organization, and we're so nimble and able to manage like this product and get new features out on a regular basis. One thing I'll just highlight is that every single release, especially if there's some major highlights in here, we do a release demo for it as well. So for example, like in about earlier this month, we released this new feature called Session State, and we have, and I'll just increase the size a little bit. We have basically the release notes, but then we also have like demos to show you exactly like how you can use, this feature to your benefit.
Yeah, right. Nice.
I have a quick question, because so right before the question for Mike, like you mentioned sharing. How, like, I'm just wondering, like, how do you make this work? Let's say I have, because a Streamlit application is always linked to data. Like, how do you ship the application with the data? Like, how do you make this really, because not everything is always just fully available, or you can just.
I did think a bit what you're mentioning is also, of course, if it's an open data set, it's easy to share something, right? But from what do you do from the moment that it's a private database and not everybody should get access? Like, how do you tackle these? How do you get these type of Streamlit applications to the end user?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's two things that we have here. One is we just have a basic secrets management service embedded into sharing. So, thinking of a database, if you have a username and password, you could certainly change the way, like hide that information from people so people don't have access to your database. Now, that's not like the most foolproof, secure setup. You basically now gave everyone all the ways to get access, so they just need the key. And so that's probably not like the most ideal, but then that kind of like leads into really our commercial product that we're working towards right now, which is basically providing the ability to access private resources. Your repos should be private, so the code is private, so allowing that. Basically single sign-on. So, most often you don't want everyone in the whole world to like maybe see like your top secret data or even the analysis of that data more specifically. And so having some single sign-on and being able to restrict the amount of users who could watch it is really like kind of like the value proposition that I think, on top of like many features that we're hoping to build in the future. Now that this is, this partnership of this really awesome and expressive open source product and the final, deployed platform in the end.
I have a quick question. Like, what is it going to look like? So, because like there is always a different offerings. Like, I understand this is going to be a cloud version, but that you can really have you can be fully integrated with your SSO and whatnot. Like, do you plan on having it maybe as a private version, like really just something that you can spin up in your infrastructure? And do you then maybe plan on having this open? Like, I'm thinking, for example, like GitLab has their own features and everything, but they also offer a free version that you can still run on your infrastructure if you want to do so.
Yeah. So, Streamlit is an open source project. And so it spins up a server. So we see people hosting it on whatever solution they prefer. But the Streamlit share option is going to provide a lot of features out of the hood that just makes it easy to enable. More or less Streamlit focuses on really how do you display and analyze data effectively and interactively. And then how, Streamlit share is like, well, if you want to just deploy it, restrict the number of people, create a login mechanism for it using, your preferred tool. Like if it's one of those, like, it's kind of like the beauty of this whole model is just that like the open source allows people to build really complex use cases. The community is really what gives fire to the product itself. And then it's just like enabling the platform to really be like an incredibly useful tool. And then when you combine it all together, it's just magic, right? And really, I think that's just what organizations are wanting nowadays is magic, and easy. It just works kind of philosophy.
Yeah. I'm just like, I know this is a bit more ops minded, but it's just I'm just wondering a bit.
I think the community, or let's say the commercial world is a bit waiting to see what will happen, of course, with the offering that is coming to make the parallel here a bit, because I think it's a very obvious parallel with Shiny, which serves a bit of a similar cause, I think. I think there has been only an adoption by, let's say, the corporate world from the moment that Shiny Server came along. I mean, before you saw some ad hoc and some experiments, but from the moment that there was a commercial offering that could be used in a corporate context, there was a huge uptake by the business world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we definitely are seeing the interest into the product itself. And that's definitely very clear. Our original focus at the very beginning was build a really great product that people love to use, and to achieve becoming like a standard that people would want. And now we're definitely seeing that our community has grown greatly. Our GitHub stars have accelerated, and I'm just always impressed at how much love and attention that we get. I am a sucker for attention, and so we are in a really great place, of course, as a company, and and it's a really great feeling and gives me that sense of pride that just, I could just really celebrate with the entire the team that works on this, from the top, to everyone,
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think like you've been doing a tremendous job. I think that, to me, the major difference with Streamlit and the Python-based things that came before is that you're like the ease of use. Like the ease of use is as easy or maybe even easier than it was with Shiny. I think that was also the strong story of Shiny. That was super easy to move from, okay, I'm this data analyst, I'm a data scientist, I've done this analysis, and now I suddenly have an application to show this in with minimal effort. And it has taken a long time in Python to have this, but Streamlit clearly also is able to do this in Python with at least the same ease of use, which is really, I mean, there's a big value added to data scientists.
So, absolutely.
Sorry, I was going to say like, there are a few questions that we might want to tackle because I see some really cool animations, and like just right before we go to that. So wait, show. So Vitaly, I think this is of course relating to the product side behind Streamlit. Like, will it be possible to have encryption for in-transit data?
Oh, that's a really great question and a great use case. I focus more on building the product more than thinking fully about the future. So I'll have to say the avenues of sharing this information. I highly recommend first is all of this. If this is not in there, make sure it's bringing it up on the forums. We are an open source product, right? And so and which really means is we really care about what our community thinks and what's the things that are important. And so really for all of these features that are that people request, the more that you drum up support, the more it really gets our attention in the end. So right. I totally understand the use case of encrypting that data in transit. And so I really think that it's just going there. And so that's one thing. Another option is using our GitHub repo and filing an issue with that enhancement request and really just talking about what are the use cases that really need it. We have a product team that focuses actually on really reviewing a lot of those, finding the implications for each one and going from there. Part of the magic that is the simplicity of it is it really to make one line of code do a really advanced thing on the screen is an incredible. It's one of those things that people look at it and be like, well, this was so easy. Why how could you do it? And now people, but now we actually spend a lot of time thinking how would this API change the way things work? How does this? What are the implications here? And so I learn a lot each day, and we spend a lot of time making sure that we really thoroughly think out what the outcomes of it will be.
Right. Next up, there's a few of them. So Michael is asking, can you import and export CSVs files like you do in Google Colab?
So yes, I don't know if I have an example right here to show, but I'll see if I can find one on the docs quickly, is that we have a file uploader, and that file uploader allows anyone to just upload a doc onto the a CSV into there, and then you could just I think it turns into a bytes IO object. So you would have to convert it to the proper text and write it in. Where is it?
That's really cool.
Right there, and let's see. Do we have? And what's nice is our docs usually they describe it right here. Here's choose a file. It gets the value, writes the data, string IO, reads the file here, and it shows it converting it into a CSV. So using pandas.
So
if you don't.
Analysis on user-provided files, basically.
Exactly. Or, the other option is just some static file, in which case you could just put that static file either, on some service that you download regularly. That's exactly what I think it's the data frame example shows, just a download and just reading the CSV or putting it in the repo itself and reading it locally.
Okay, so I think we're touching upon a lot of use cases here. What do you think, Ken? What are good use cases? So when is Streamlit the answer?
When is Streamlit the answer? I like to think everything.
From when onwards do you need to look at Streamlit?
What's really interesting is, when that simplicity just provides a ton of power. And so I look at it for analyzing data. I've done it, building and testing models, making predictions. I've used it for constructing dashboards. I actually am considering a mortgage refinancing, and I was thinking in my head, all of where's the money come from? How much do I save? Is this really worth the value? And I was writing a Streamlit app to do it, right? Because it could be done as easily as that. I see every single day the community build something completely unique. I've used it for build tools. How do we construct and analyze a database as a support tool, especially when it's all done internally, and I'm not too worried about the implications of this isn't the product coming out at the end. So it's just I've just seen it for many use cases there, and we have a gallery of apps to show. I think I can find it right here. And we have, for NLP, sports, fun, geography, science, technology, computer vision. With some of these widget tools are very the core building blocks. And so, if you basically say, as long as it takes a file, it can do something with it that has to do with code, then it works really great here.
Okay.
And then maybe the other way around, like where do you run into the limits? Are there the things where you say, okay, this is maybe not the ideal use case?
Yeah. You know, what's funny is every single time I say it can't be done with Streamlit, I'm always proven otherwise. But all I could say is that like the simplicity comes compromise, right? Is really kind of the final story of it. And so, you know, I have seen some pretty amazing customized interfaces that basically leverage, you know, takes the internals of Streamlit and completely rewrite it, you know, under the hood. But I think you're probably stretching your image outside of like the original core use case that Streamlit was focused on. But I think like, you know, I still, you know, like really at that point, the alternative becomes like a Flask type system where you just build a full web app and write it all up. And I see the reason why people are actually saying, you know what, Streamlit does actually most of it right. Let's just like tweak it to our liking.
Okay.
Yeah, with my experience, I've been the same experience. Like from the moment it becomes so big, the border between dashboard / small app and full scale web app, like when you're on this border, that it sometimes becomes like you need to think about like, should we move to an actual web application that we built from scratch, because it's a bit easier to like unit test all my small parts and like in terms of maintainability long term. But for a lot of things like that you want to build quickly, where you want to have results that you can easily adjust, like Streamlit does a lot of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like I that's what I see as well. It's just like, you know, I always first have been thinking like, oh, I really want to build an interface that does this. And before I would think of building, even if it's just a basic UI, but now I'm like, oh, Streamlit does 99% of the work and heavy lifting for me. I just want to be able to write the script that, you know, explains the logic underneath the hood and then deploy it. Yeah.
Okay. And who is because you've mentioned you've shouted out the Streamlit team. Who is the Streamlit team? Is there a commercial company behind Streamlit? How is this structure?
Yeah, we are a company. I am working for a company. I do get paid, thankfully, by them. Please keep doing so. So the Streamlit company, I don't know the exact number of people. We're growing crazily, and it's been really great. I want to say it's, you know, in the 30 to 40 range. So I said it's a lean team. They're just such a great group of people, and we are completely remote. We don't have any central location or headquarters. It's something that we've embraced last year, especially just before the pandemic, you know, happened. And you know, like I pretend like that's just a thing now. And it's just really great people. You know, we have people who are active on the forums. We have, you know, a lot, our marketing engine, our, you know, the team that manages the open source project, and the team that's focusing on like building and deploying. I really just can't say this enough. I just really enjoy talking to people, getting on the calls, and look forward to meeting them sometime in person soon.
I'm actually wondering, because I think you mentioned at the beginning, like you mentioned the core team, and I think you said 7-8-ish people. Like how big is like generally like in this 40 people? Like what's the kind of size of the engineering department and like, because I can imagine there is a lot to do.
You know, it's funny. I'm like thinking about this all, and I'm like, this is like I'm sure my manager who manages all of engineering would know all these numbers. I focus on my team, you know, mostly. I would be quick to say, you know, in the 10 to 15 inch magnitude range, right, of it, maybe even a little more towards 20. Maybe this should be my shout out, like plugin that we're always hiring. We love engineers. So if you love Python, you know, front end development, cloud development, things like that, check out our careers page. We also are looking for people who are not, you know, focused mostly on, you know, on the business side too, recruiters, people, you know, we're just hiring, we're just growing like crazy. And so, you know, there's my shout out.
Yeah, definitely send us where we can find it so that we can share it with the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it. It's streamlit.io, and then at the bottom we have a careers page right there.
Maybe so we're talking about the company, but Streamlit. just out of curiosity, what came first? Streamlit, the open source library, or Streamlit the company?
Oh, I guess I'm trying to think. It probably became a company before we officially became open source, but the story is kind of interesting. Story of, our CEO, Adrian, having a moment with a friend and saying like, you know what, let's just go into the woods and just code. And, like that's, like you do, that's the fun aspect of just getting lost and focus on it, like a huge problem. And I remember, I don't remember exactly the story, but it was something along the lines that he wanted to do some data analysis that I'm just going to say like games the stock market, right? Like the thing that we always want to do. How can we like, use machine learning to figure out like what's the best, stocks to pick and how we can make the most money in the end, the thing that's really, really hard. And I think the interesting thing it was, while he was working on it, he grew more frustrated with like the tooling available to demonstrate and test out his ideas. It was like just more or less running a script over and over again and seeing the output and wanting to adjust variables to see, how that impacts things. And so he actually spent that time focusing on building, more or less the starting idea of Streamlit. So, it was really less about like, oh, this is a business, right? It was just more like, maybe it's rage fueled, like of like tools and just wanting to build something really awesome on it. And since then, like, just, said like, showed what he did and he was like, oh, like, this is really awesome. And, basically kind of grew and said like, okay, what are the feature sets? And then, released to an open source.
That's cool.
Wait, maybe gonna, because there is only one extra questions, and then it's only people thanking you. Like Vitaly say thanks, and Mark already told you that the dark theme is really cool, so But he also asked, so is there a way to create visual themes that one can customize to their organization and reuse them later? I think it was more about the layout that we spoke about earlier, like custom layout.
Themes, yes, absolutely. So what I'm showing you here is actually light mode. If you select, this is the, and you click on the settings here, you have the option. We have a dark mode. I actually prefer dark mode, but I figured, start with the standard for everyone, and it just looks just as beautiful there. And you have the ability to actually like create a theme that works for you. So if you edit the active theme, you can change the colors and see how it impacts the entire page. So I'm not a designer by any means, but there you go. Now I have a blue and green setup here. I could change the font size, the font type, and I could copy that theme, and then you can just edit it in, and it lets you customize it, the look and feel to your liking.
Right.
And I see. I was gonna ask, like, is this like then a personal preference? But there's also a way to copy this setting to your config. I see.
Right there at the bottom, yeah, and it just tells you exactly what to do at the bottom. So easy, right? Like it's exactly the focus we're going for,
Okay. So Mark caught me like indeed color themes, but I think you clearly answered the question there. Right?
Yeah, nice.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Where is Streamlit going from here? Like you already told a little bit that you're working on a commercial platform. There's also a lot of features on the roadmap. Is there, maybe that's to start with, is there a public roadmap?
So we had a public roadmap defined, I want to say in 2019, maybe early 2020, and of like, what we promised to build for the open source community, especially. That really ended with session state, which is the most recent thing that we launched earlier this month. And so, we're doing a lot of soul searching and some really awesome, like looking at what are the use cases people are specifically wanting to target? What communities are we targeting? Like, are we looking for, we really want to make this really awesome for computer vision people, or because we kind of hit a lot of our core, audience. How do we make the look and feel like even more customizable to match people's tastes? So we don't have officially like a full public roadmap to, like we did in before, but we are working on that and we're getting something out soon. But all I could say is it's going to centralize around like two main themes. One is just how do we customize these applications to look incredibly awesome, right? Like how could like writing a script just generate this amazing app? You know, killer apps is kind of the theme of now. We talked about ways that we want to improve the developer experience. So, you know, that's kind of something that we're generating ideas for, but just like, you know, we have a script and people are writing code. How do we make that better? Just like any other development tool, like some of the, you know, we just want to create that deep sense of joy in people in writing the apps just as much as the people looking at the app, right? Because those are our two audiences there. And then combining that with just, you know, really enriching that deployed product really heavily and seeing like how can people collaborate more effectively? Where can we improve the seamlessness or, you know, we've said it multiple times, the streamlitiness of our, you know, just from like now that you build the app and do something there. So we're working on like making sure that, you know, always making sure our apps are secure, that it's easy to manage, easy to deploy, scale, and collaborate on them.
Right. How do you, because like I'm guessing you are basing yourself a bit on data to do this. Like, how are you gathering all this input? Like, I mean, of course there is a community, but like, do you have channels that you can go through and then really give feedback or be a beta tester? Or like, what does it look like to actually manage all these features that you get and putting them in order? And
yeah, I always recommend the community being the first starting point, right? Is the place where both new and experienced people can come in and share their feedback and ideas. And so I really think that that's the starting point. We definitely take the feedback. We do analysis. We have surveys that pop up. So if there's anyone who wants to like give feedback on something, that's a great opportunity there. If you know, we see lots of people really sharing stuff for the community and really playing like a good advocate for us in general. We have a program called the Creators, Streamlit Creators, which is a group of, I don't know how many people, but it's so cool because they're, you know, we basically now have a little bit more, you could say it's special access to us, but it's more just like we get to talk to them more regularly, run through ideas and just have like a feedback session with them as well. So I think that's kind of the avenue there that we just, you know, because one of the most interesting things is like, once you have everything be a Python script, you know, the world becomes, you know, infinitely many possibilities, you know, beyond more, you know, on a magnitude difference. And so, you know, really having people test drive. I do have to say we are an open source product as well. And so one thing that I don't think people know maybe as much is we actually have a nightly build that gets created. So if people are curious about the latest, greatest stuff that's in there or are following our GitHub, like, again, it's an open source product, right? So people can see like the commit messages that are coming through, and every night we build nightly of that build that they can install. So Streamlit-nightly, and they can try it out. And if they want to give feedback there, it's, you know, it's greatly appreciated, you know?
Yeah. Do you see a lot of contributions coming from the community as well on the GitHub?
Yeah, we see a few. We are, you know, I've seen contributions range from just like, you know, we made a typo in an error message or something like that, and have out in it's huge value. And some people who give like more meaningful messages to people fixing bugs for us, for people, you know, really saying like, this is my use case, and I'd like to make sure we support it. That one's a little bit. You know, we always want to make sure that we're on the same page here before we get it merged in and make sure that like all the implications are studied and thought through. But like we've had people who, you know, offer up ideas of how to implement solutions there, and it's been really helpful. It's so awesome just talking to you know, like it's just, again, it shows the passion that people have for it, right? It's just like, oh, like we want to actively make this better, and because this is, you know, an awesome tool that, you know, I heard from you as well, you know.
If we talk about these community contributions and really on the code, how much time of you goes to these type of things, or how much time of Streamlit, in the sense that I've encountered this in the past, like people creating a PR, putting a lot of time in it, but it might not align completely with your vision or completely with what you're trying to build, and it's not that easy to manage all this, like expectation wise, even ignoring code quality standards, stuff like this. Like, how do you manage these aspects?
Oh, that is like the story of my job right now, is just really trying to balance, you know, the amount of like management of expectations and focus on it. It's kind of one of the reasons why I stress that we're such a lean organization, right? Because if we put all our time dedicated to it, we would definitely be struggling and we wouldn't be able to deliver the features that people are begging us for. So yeah, so it's a combination of, we really do recommend making sure we talk about the issue beforehand, making sure we understand the problem, is there a solution, and we can talk about the priority there. We have had some situations of implementation done before. I don't really think, like most of the time it's been more small. So it's just been like, hey, this is the solution that I did here. And so we actually like, and it's just in our guidelines to say, contributing guidelines to say like, hey, you know, if you're, you know, be sure you've kind of confirmed with us before you go, just because, right? Like we don't want to create that problem for you, right? Like, because like it's one of those, like, we love the energy, but let's have the conversation first. And we're more than willing to like talk about the idea and share with it. So we periodically are scanning the boards. We do talk to the PR owners, and we just have, and I just, you know, I really just want to give that like appreciation to all of them, because you know, I know how it's so uncomfortable to just like jump out publicly and say, here is an idea that I have, what do you think? You know, and it really, there's a huge appreciation that I'm very grateful for, that like to give that idea. And so you know, we treat everything, you know, with just the kindness that we have there.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I think that's also good as a basis. Like, please, before you spend a lot of time on, please align whether or not we're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, or, you know, and some people do it just to experiment with ideas and share with us and just say like, hey, this is what I did and this is what solved the problem, you know, and that's just as helpful as well. Like, it's kind of like this understanding, like, this might not be the final code that's merged in, but we have, you know, here is like, they actually like did their homework even more. Again, like, amazing. Like, it's just awesome, you know?
Yeah. Nice. You mentioned when you showed it a little bit as well, like the session state feature. I can imagine implementation-wise, it's a big thing. How did this come to be? Is it also something that was requested by the community?
Yes, this was one that was requested by the community, and many, I want to say, hacks have been implemented to like implement on a thing. So the core idea is that Streamlit apps are a script, and at its highest level, whenever any change happens, whether it's interaction of a widget or something on the screen, it's going to re-execute that script top to bottom again. And so and I can bring up the session state page if you want to take a look here. And so the main idea is that, like, well, now when you execute a script from top to bottom every single time, you inevitably lose all information. You're starting from scratch because you're reanalyzing the data. But you know, what people want to do now is they say, well, I'd like to save data across these reruns. And really, that's where session state has become. More or less, we added statefulness to an application. So session state is specifically in the session of the app itself. So if I go to a new tab, it's effectively reset. And so we have a very basic example of a counter right here. And so when you just click it, you know, it's now running, but it's now keeping track of that count. This was pretty much the canonical example here. To examples where people want to build games, so like creating tic-tac-toe, and implementing a system there to to-do lists, to data labeling, if people want to label images and create an annotations list, pagination, saving all that information across. These are the examples. You would have to externally save this information, and now it's just a part of session state right there. And so it's just, like I said, it was one of the most asked features. It was the one that like took a ton of time actually to do. We worked on this.
The examples probably don't really honor the amount of time that went into it. Like I count on that you can increment doesn't really honor the development time but to make that.
Absolutely. I think that like I really I think I said this or I said it somewhere else maybe, but I said this is that like with so much simplicity, like so much under the hood has to be done to manage the expectation to be exactly how people would intuitively look at it. And so just all of these examples just really like there seems so trivial, and that's part of it. Is like we want to make it seem trivial, but then under the hood it just builds a system in place.
That's really nice. Your role, you're an engineering manager. That means that you have a team, right? How does, because it's maybe a nice insight as well, like you say that working at Streamlit is a very nice atmosphere. Like, but how does it look like? How does your team work from day to day? It's fully remote. Like how do they know what is priority? What are they working on? Do you work in an agile manner? Like what is your view on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I manage a team of 4 engineers that's growing, and we are remote. And like I would say it's more in the standard agile system. We do sprints, we do stand-ups regularly. We have a few things in place, like we have, today is no meeting Wednesday. That's very company culture oriented. And really like we just find time to enjoy talking to each other regularly, because I feel like the one thing that we forget in like remote world is that like we're human and the world's very weird right now, especially. And, and so like my biggest thing that I've just learned is that like, whenever you go to a meeting, it's not all business, have that water cooler conversation, enjoy that time, because then you get some really insightful, just learn a little bit more about each other as people. We also have, remote culture introduces just time zone working hours differences. And we kind of have some system to encourage, like we have to have some synchronicity, it's really the nature of the startup, but like, we spend a lot of time actually doing a lot of writing, writing a lot of ideas, making sure that we're getting the feedback on there. It's actually not much different than probably what people should have been doing, but like a meeting was easy to solve the problem. And now we just write out the problem, write down our solution, collect feedback, and talk through it on the side. So it's, so we just have just a team there that does that.
That's nice. And in your, so you are fully remote. Well, like I guess a lot of people have been for the last year. What I personally find the challenge is that when you need to brainstorm about something, I very much like having a whiteboard and gathering about, potentially with a pizza and a beer, to brainstorm around the problem. Like how do you do this? Because I can imagine that features you're developing are not always that easy. You need to brainstorm, you need to think about it. So like how do you tackle this aspect when you're working fully remote?
I'm like glad you asked that, because I don't want to say I don't like that whiteboarding. I think the whiteboarding does include some methods to just draw something on the screen faster than probably what we could do in person. But honestly, one of the things that the advantage that I get out of remote is actually I get a much more inclusive group of people, because really what I do is I tell people, all right, here is your space, write down all of your ideas around here. And we give 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depends on, how big of a problem it is that we need people to imagine. And then we go through them together, and we like identify the themes, and we get the idea. And, I don't know about you two, but I'm an introvert in the end. Like this is totally freaking me out right now, and so having that time to be in my thoughts, to be creative, has really helped me in the end. And yeah, I can't generalize the entire engineering population. Some people want to talk it out, but basically what this is enabling is allowing people to have time, think about it, and really encourage everyone to speak up their ideas and get that brainstorming. So honestly, like even when I had public scenarios, I did something similar with like what we call brain writing, which is basically, everyone has their own space, either like on a notepad or something like that. And then we go, it's the Post-it note situation where people write their ideas and you just put it all up on the board and then you put it together. And that's something that like is easy to replicate in a remote world.
It's a very interesting input. Yeah, like with this way you give everybody the space to do it, and you take away this concern of that some people might speak up easier or less easy than other people. Like it's an interesting, interesting view.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like that's the way that it, in providing that space to do it, and that's because like that basically combines like, all right, I say introverts and extroverts as like two groups, but like have your creative time, have your thoughts, write it down, please. And then now it's like, oh, now we're going to do the discussion together. Now we're having an engaging conversation. Now we have to like put ourselves out there. And, you know, you kind of are satisfying both groups of people, or both interests in this case.
Okay. Cool. Maybe last question about how your team works. Like you work with sprints, like you say, a more or less standard agile approach. So I assume there are sprints. How do you plan these? Like, because you have a very big community that is asking things. Like, is it easy? Like, do you have a bit of a view, where do I want to be in 5 sprints, or is this always a bit like balancing between, are there new requests versus my long-term vision? Yeah,
I mean, it's a to-do list that constantly is expanding, right? It's basically like the universe right now. It's always expanding. So the more or less, like, you know, it's kind of divided into 2 buckets, right? Like, here are the features that we're implementing. And like, we tend to have a project lead. Depending on the size and scope of the project, we might have more people on it. And more or less, their focus is trying to like get that to the finish line. And then we have the community's needs. And that's defined as either like really bugs and issues, or things that we really need to address to make sure that we remain responsive and really good and no issues and seamless, right? And then there's like the other, like all these enhancement requests. And just because, you know, we basically have a product team, so shout out to Abi, you know, my product manager, who really like feels all those. And so really, which is great, it basically allows engineers to focus, right, on what needs to get done, and then figuring out what's next gets prioritized, you know, with a lot of inputs, is kind of like the core role of what our product manager does. Yeah, but like you know, I like, this is actually my first time I've ever worked on a company that has, you know, a major open source project. And so the really exciting thing that has come out of it is like I said, a lot of the excitement, the passion, the love that we get from our users, but also just like the feedback, the ideas. You know, it's kind of like most people like struggle to get data, and now it's like data is just like coming out the door and just like and bursting at seams, you know, to just kind of give you that information. And so it's now, you know, what we all do with data: clean it up, try to figure out what exactly the core need is it exactly the use case, and whether it fits into our philosophy, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe a final question to start rounding up, or approaching the hour. When you look at Streamlit in the, let's say, in the Python ecosystem, like, are there, in your opinion, any direct competitors to Streamlit?
It depends what your definition of direct in this case. You know,
I would call it perhaps something like a user wants to very quickly build an application that looks nice.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking a little bit about this, and that's why perhaps one of the reasons why I keep coming back to Streamlit. Like, you have, for example, Django, which could potentially, like, but it's still a lot more complex. You need to know a lot more of the stuff that you need to get up and running. You need to know about databases. Like, you need to have much more knowledge about like application development. And I think the other alternative, which maybe in terms of ease of use comes a bit towards Streamlit, is Dash or Plotly, or the combination. But it's much more. It looks much more. It doesn't look as nice out of the box.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to make it look as nice as Streamlit.
Yeah. Bart, I'm more just wondering why you keep searching, right? And you know the core answer is in your heart, right? You know, like, yeah, like, you know, what's really interesting is, you know, we certainly, if we weren't a good company, we wouldn't be looking at seeing what other players are doing. And so I don't spend the day-to-day focusing on this. I focus more on like making Streamlit the best it could be. But what I could say is that each place is going to, each competitor, the ones you just said, like Plotly, Dash, you know, you could say Django, they kind of have a philosophy and like a whole focus of what they're trying to do and how they hope to achieve it. And really what's really most interesting about you know, when we think about competitors is just, you know, like, what is the hypothesis that they're making about like their product, right? And how are they positioning their product to be the solution to what the problem is? It's more like how they define the problem, how they define the solution. And, you know, the way we define the problem more or less is like people want extreme flexibility in building apps, and they want it to just look good out of the box, right, easily, right? And Streamlit is like the like beyond like one of the best. I'm biased, we all know. Aside at that achieving that, right? Writing it in Python makes it so easy, and it looks beautiful out of the box. And so I think others are just positioning it a little bit differently and going in the avenues that they're going. And I think that's just like a learn. It's really good. I think it's just what makes this a really, interesting product landscape, right? Is that like when we look at it, it's like, well, they're kind of trying to do the same thing that we're doing, but in a different direction, and it's just seeing like what lays out there. So it's just a lot. To me, I look at it as everything is a lot of learning, just learning of what people like or what don't like.
Okay. How can people know where Streamlit is going? How do they keep up to date on Streamlit? What is the best way to, the best channel to follow? Multiple channels, perhaps? Oh
gosh, we're everywhere, but we're all on the major stuff. We're on Twitter, especially, and of course, the forums is probably like the freshest information's coming out there. We have a blog for all of our official Streamlit announcements and stuff, so I highly recommend subscribing to that and following. And I'm at Ken McGrady on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, but you know what? You might hear me say something. So
okay, that's great. And do you have I don't know, like, because you said you have like maybe a Slack or a Discord or like some channels where the community can easily gather and have discussions around certain topics. I don't know. It's just
yeah, I think that's we don't formally have one organized for us specifically. We kind of trying to embed this stuff more into right now in the Python community, especially. So I recommend going to our Discuss forums, and that's where it is. I think like I will just say like stay tuned, because the community is getting en masse, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more solutions in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Anything you want to close with, Ken?
I know I'm just like one person sitting here, but I really just want to say like I just want to say that it takes a whole village to build this type of product. It started with Adrian's idea in the woods and implementing it out. And all I could say is that like, I'm just one person at this thing. So just really want to give a full appreciation to the entire team at Streamlit and the company for building a product, and even more so just to our community members who, love, enjoy, proclaim, and tell us where we're wrong and are just very honest with us. And so I really just want to say thank you to everyone. And thanks to you two for having me.
Thanks for coming. It was very interesting. Yeah. We're going to leave it at this. Thanks everybody for following, and stay tuned for the next edition. Bye.
Bye.